Welcome to the Serve Campus podcast. This is a resource for campus ministry workers across Canada, providing inspiration, education, and coaching for people leading ministries on post-secondary campuses. Our goal with this podcast is to encourage and resource you in your vital work on universities, colleges, institutes, wherever you are. So enjoy a coffee and welcome to the show. And I'm going to introduce John Engels today and myself, Jordan Clark, and we're going to be interviewing Seth Greenham.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Jordan. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this show. My name is John Engels, as Jordan already said, and I hope that our time together can really help you think creatively about serving and enriching your campus ministry among students, faculty, and staff on Canada's post-secondary campuses. Jesus said in Mark 10:45, "The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many." Well, the idea of serving just isn't a slogan. Serve Campus Network has a multifaceted approach to campus ministry with 5 models. These include chaplains, campus churches, campus clubs, church-based, and creative models. We endeavor to add value to post-secondary institutions, practically, emotionally, spiritually, with no strings attached. And we aim to be helpful producers in a consumer-driven culture. Our question for those who are listening today is, how can we help or serve you? And we hope that our podcast can help answer that question in some small way for you today. Well, I'm really excited about having a good friend on our show with us, and that's Seth Greenham. Seth is the District Director for University Christian Ministries, which is based in Langley, British Columbia, under the BC and Yukon District Office. And I'm excited because Seth has been in campus ministry for, a couple decades now. Is that right, Seth?
Yeah, 22 years.
22 and going. And I'm excited for Seth to be here because he's going to be talking about how to multiply campus workers. And that's such a huge need that we have today across Canada in raising up new workers. And so great to have you with us, Seth, today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, first, why don't you let us know how you got going in campus ministry? What started all that for you?
My journey is not linear. I was at Bible school. My full intention was to be a junior high youth pastor. So I had gone to Central Bible College in Springfield, Missouri, out of my small town in Newfoundland that I grew up in. And my intention was to be a junior high youth pastor. And I did a 4-year degree there in youth ministry. And as I was doing that, I did an internship at a church, Allison Park Assembly of God in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And one of the jobs they gave me was to teach a college student Sunday school class on a Wednesday night, basically. And of all the things I did that year in my internship, that was the thing that I really, really enjoyed. I had multiple people say to me, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing campus ministry or young adult ministry?" And I was like, "No, I'm junior high youth pastor. That's what I'm going to do." I went back to school and I took a course on campus ministry, which I thought was how to set up a campus ministry on a high school campus. But instead, it was on how to do campus ministry on a university campus. I was about 3 weeks into that class with Harvey Herman, who's a friend of ours, and I realized that the Lord had sort of changed my direction. So
gotta love that spiritual bait and switch.
Yeah. So here we go. Yeah. in moving from there, I went to that class, and then I naturally asked the question, how do I become a campus pastor? The system with Chi Alpha, which is sort of a sister organization for us in the United States, they do apprenticeships or internships post graduation. So you have your bachelor's degree, and then you would go into a internship program. And so I asked them where the best one in the country was, and they told me Bellingham, Washington. At that time, this is in the mid '90s, and that's how I ended up in Bellingham, Washington, doing the Campus Christian Fellowship apprenticeship. And so that's how I got into this gig.
Wow, and Bellingham, Washington is close to my heart, as you know,
Yes,
because
I do.
I'm a
Yeah.
homeboy. That's where I grew up, and I went to Western as well. So it's just fun to see, how God connects our directions together over the years, Seth. And I think we go way back into the '90s, even when we maybe
Yep.
first met. I think it was at a Chi Alpha conference.
Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. I remember you talking to Brady in a lunch line, and I was like, "Oh, who's that guy?"
Yeah, Brady Bobbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
The next question, I guess, is how is University Christian Ministries uniquely positioned in the BCYD district, the British Columbia district? And just because you are in charge of that and you are a part of that. And so can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, really some visionary people that went before me here in British Columbia. University Ministries in BC sort of starts with Bernice Gerard, who started chaplaincy at UBC and Simon Fraser University in 1965. And so when we think about the BCYD's ministry on campus, it really goes back to 1965 and an initiative from Bernice Gerard. In the 1980s, we had a student start University Christian Ministries, influenced by the ministry in Bellingham, Washington as well. And that student sort of handed that ministry off to Rob Powell. And Rob sort of integrated the chaplaincy at UBC and SFU with the student club called UCM. And so that sort of brings those two pieces together. And so we're actually 40 years old this year.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. And again, like I said, so we're standing on shoulders of giants here. Bernice Gerard, Rob Powell, and they've really paved the way in our district. And so when I came on board, we had four what would have been considered chaplains and directors of student ministries here in BC. I have a little picture on my desk, actually, of the four who were in UCM at the time. And now we've grown, actually, I think we have 22 employees this year. And so over the 40 years, we've expanded from 4 campuses to 7, much of that under John's leadership. And yeah, our staffing wise, we're about 22 staff here in British Columbia on doing mission on campus. So.
In what ways does UCM serve students and the PSI in BC? And what are some specific models that you use in order to, because you gave us the broad just beginnings of UCM, but what are some specific strategies that you use and utilize to serve students?
Yeah, we sort of use a variety of models here. We obviously were primarily student club model. UCM is a student club. Our staff come alongside and pastor those student clubs, give direction, those kinds of things. But we are a student club-based ministry. That's our primary thing. The second thing is we have this chaplaincy arm. Now, not all of our campuses have chaplaincies, but if they do, then our worker also serves as the Pentecostal chaplain on those campuses. And so that's sort of a traditional chaplaincy in a multi-faith or interfaith kind of setting. We also do creative things. Red Frogs, you guys probably are familiar with, but Red Frogs is a chaplaincy initiative. It's active and it's innovative. And so we are just leaning into that. And that's a service-based, we're looking specifically around the alcohol culture and trying to do harm reduction initiatives around that. And so that's one of the innovative things that we've been doing through our chaplaincy and combining with our student club membership in order to serve the university in that way. So we've got a diverse, in the 5C models of Serve Campus, we're doing chaplaincy, we're doing clubs, and we're doing creative initiatives. So that's a mix, but we're definitely primarily club-based or disciple-making communities would probably be a good way to define that.
It's excellent. And Seth, you were a chaplain there back, all the way back to 2000 or sometime?
Yeah.
Yep. At Simon Fraser University. So you've got a lot of experience with that. And it's just great to see the Simon Fraser University just continuing to disciple so many leaders and equip so many. I know that some of the current staff, campus ministry staff there, are people who have been students who have gotten saved, and that's a pretty cool thing. So, do you have a short story on one of those staff people?
Yeah, sure. We've been really blessed at SFU. I was there. I first started as a chaplain there in November of 1999, which is really scary. I started asking students what year they're born, and I've been in campus ministry longer than they've been born. So, that's fun. Definitely one of our aims at SFU was try to reproduce staff. And then one of the great things that's happened is some of the students who came to faith in our ministry have done our apprenticeship and then have joined our staff. Our current assistant district director, Marissa Baskins, or Marissa Pete, as her maiden name, Baskin, she came to faith in our ministry through a dorm corps. One of our staff, Kaylee, along with another one of our current staff who was a student at the time, Joanna, they started a dorm corps. And they had a meal, and around that time, Marissa was on the floor and joined the meal and was interested in the conversations and joined the core or small group that we had in the dorm. She came to faith, was an amazing student leader for us, did the apprenticeship. She served on staff at SFU for the last 5 or 6 years, and now has joined us here at on the provincial level. So. She's a great story, and God just really transformed her in just really cool ways.
It's amazing because as someone like I'm personally just starting out, and our districts are very different. Like your district is very established compared to ours, where ours is a lot smaller, and we're trying to look at new ways to reach out. And you've done that. I mean, you've been doing this. You just said 40 years. Ago, UCM was established, and which is amazing. And we're just looking at establishing our own kind of network or whatever that is. So, for someone like me that's just starting out with this, what would you advise campus workers that are working with students right now? What would you advise them to start doing to have strong leaders that are multiplying each other or that are growing, right? Like you just said. Mm-hmm. What are some of the tangible, concrete strategies or things we need to get these students doing in order for that to happen?
Yeah, I think you can come to university ministry with a couple different mindsets. But if you don't have an intentional plan for discipleship, you may have a service, you may have something happening on campus, but is it reproducible? Is probably the biggest issue. And so you have to have a plan, a discipleship plan.
As someone who's starting out, we're just starting out our university ministry here, and we're still brand new, still trying to figure out even models and stuff and what works for us. So when it comes to, and UCM was established 40 years ago, like you're saying. So with the BC district, you all have been doing this a lot longer and have had systems in place. So for someone in a district in Saskatchewan, for instance, that's just starting out with this, what are some of the specific concrete methods and ministries and strategies that we could utilize to not just multiply leaders, but to grow students in the ministry and to get them involved and to create that discipleship track that you just mentioned, even with someone going into a district position from university? What are some of those concrete things that we can start doing?
Yeah, I think I came into a university ministry in Bellingham that had a strategy. And I think that's really important, is to have a disciple-making strategy. And so it was the first time I was ever involved in a ministry that cared more about the small group and one-to-one mentoring than they did about the large group meeting. Most of us grow up in church. Sunday is a big deal. I came to that ministry, and I mean, we had a large group meeting, and that was an important part of our discipleship. But the actual sort of secret sauce, if you will, was the small group discipleship and the peer mentoring of the people who came to the small groups. And so for us here in BC, we have that model. We're trying to make disciples who make disciples who make disciples. And that is our goal. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's really a measure for us. We're trying to look at that. And so it means you're putting a lot of effort and a lot of focus on your small group leaders. So when we talk about small groups, I don't mean staff leading small groups. I mean student-led small groups and student-led mentoring that reproduces itself. As you know, in university, we get them for 4 years, and then they scatter for a lifetime, as the quote goes. And so in that 4 years, we try to have a healthy community of students leading students. With the purpose of multiplying our communities. And so I think that's a focus. If I'm new, when I went to SFU as a pioneer, we didn't have a large group meeting. We started with our small groups. And that was, so if some people think of that as a cell-based ministry, that's what we were. I think we had, at one point, we had 10 small groups, and I was leading all of the guys groups and co-leading all of the girls groups for a year. And then I got out of co-leading the girls groups, and the girls were just doing those. And then I got out of leading the guys groups as well. And so that's sort of our strategy, and has been. We generally, we want more people in small groups than actually come to our large group meeting. That would be an expectation that we'd have.
So you pretty much built a small group focused church, is what you built.
Totally.
Which is awesome. That's like, and I think honestly for the younger generation coming up, my generation even, I think and to put it into context, when you were starting that in 1999, I was 10 years old. So, so there you go. And it's, but I think we've been finding that people really want a voice at church. Like people want to hear a message and then they want to talk about it. Right. Yeah. So, and I think that suits a small group setting quite a bit. And so now this leads into something that kind of on the cuff a little bit. In the last, let's say, year and a half, 2 years, when it comes to having such a focus on core groups and such a focus on doing small groups, how have you all managed to be flexible, and what does it look like now in the eyes of COVID? What do those small groups look like now? Are they working? What has worked for you? What hasn't worked for you in this time of distancing and being virtual?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, COVID throws us a curveball. It throws everybody in the church a curveball, but it definitely threw university life and ministry in a definite curveball. One of the things that happened is because we had existing small group structure, those moved to Zoom very easily, actually. And the harder thing was actually facilitating our large group meeting online. And so we moved to Zoom very quickly. Now, COVID sort of hit with about 3 weeks to go in our small group program like in the spring semester a year ago. So we just sort of finished out those online, but we were really challenged trying to figure out how that was going to work. But those 3 weeks actually really helped us because those students knew what it was like to do a Zoom small group. And so when we launched them in September, they came back, and there was enough of a momentum there that new people who joined really enjoyed it. And Jordan, you're right. Students are looking for engagement. They're not just looking for preaching, although they like preaching, but they want to engage with content. They want to have discussions. They want to hear multiple viewpoints. And I think a small group helps that. So for us, one of the amazing things in COVID is our large group meetings have diminished. We generally run about 350 in a large group meeting across the province. So if you take all of our ministries together and put them together, about 350 students a week in a large group. In our small groups, we're running about 215. COVID's hit us. We're probably down to about 150 in our large groups. And on our small groups, we're at 215, 220. They have just held steady, solid, doing well. Our student leadership also, which is part of our dynamic, is really held well. We had about 95 students who are actively involved in student leadership on our campuses. And that's sort of continued even through COVID. Which has been amazing because we had lots of students who signed up for leader positions, but those positions obviously shifted. You got voted in to be the outreach coordinator, and then suddenly now we're all online. Well, I mean, that's a pretty big pivot. Yeah. So it's been really amazing. And the strength of our small group discipleship has really weathered the storm of COVID. And so
that's so encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
And on a basic level, and this is actually probably more for me, but it's good the audience will hear this.
Yeah.
Like on a systems level, what do those small groups look like? Are they weekly? Are you creating your own content? Are students writing their own content? Like, what does that look like? And what does it look like on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, so I think it varies. They are weekly. We're definitely meeting weekly. We think that's important, just a solid run. Basically a semester is 13 weeks. Our small groups are about 10 of those 13 weeks. They sort of go. And in terms of content, our staff write content. We teach students to write content. So some of our staff will write. Of those 10 weeks, they might write 6 Bible studies and then let the students write the other 4. Some of our students are like, hey, I really want to do this topic or this book. So we actually have somebody who is, they bought a book and their small group is going through that. So, there's a variety there, but generally it's a staff-driven, student-driven content piece. So.